Hi, I'm Mike Ignatoski, the creator of the PurpleWolf basketball spreadsheet, the spreadsheet that aims to help you get more enjoyment out of your tabletop basketball projects by doing a lot of the work, if not all the work, of tracking your team and players' game stats and season stats, as well as team standings and schedules. By doing that, you'll get more time to play your games, have more fun, and maybe take on projects that you wouldn't otherwise take on. This is video number 4 of the PurpleWolf overview video series, the last of these videos. And in this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to create a historical league and also cover some miscellaneous spreadsheet features, talk about some possible future features of the PurpleWolf spreadsheet, and generally wrap this up. Okay, so let's get going. The first thing you want to do in order to create a league in the PurpleWolf spreadsheet is you need to obviously get the spreadsheet, and you also need the basketball reference helper file. So you need to download them from the Facebook group, which is officially named PurpleWolf Basketball Spreadsheet. So you need to, once you join the group, and you'll need to request to join it, and I'll need to approve that you can join it. You don't automatically get added to the group, so please follow the rules, answer the basic questions, and I guess agree to the rules. Then I'll let you in the group. But once you're in the group, you can go to the files section on the PurpleWolf spreadsheet, on the PurpleWolf Facebook group. There'll be at least files that look like this. They might not be right next to each other when you go there as other files get added, but in general, there are 2 files you need to get. One will be the PurpleWolf spreadsheet itself, which is this first one, and the next one is the basketball reference helper data file, which starts with PW b-ball ref data. And once you have those and download them to your computer, and I just kind of want to show what these mean. This first one, which is the spreadsheet itself, the number at the end, this 120, that's the version number, and it'll change over time as I release more updates. But 120 equates to version 1.20. Like the last 2 numbers are kind of after the decimal of the version. And I mention that just because if I put out a bug fix, it might be called 1.21 or 1.22. And if just the last number changes, that really means it's just a bug fix. But if it's one of the other numbers, like 1.3, then that means it probably has some new features. And this second file, which is that basketball reference helper data file that I referred to, and it's also an Excel file, and it contains all the NBA and ABA historical data that the PurpleWolf spreadsheet accesses for different things if you're going to look at and use historical data. At the end, this data, this number 1, that is kind of like the version of this file, and it'll change over time as updates occur to that at least once a year with the new basketball season data included. So the point is always get the newest version or the largest number of both the basketball reference helper data file as well as the spreadsheet itself. You always want the largest number will be the newest version of it, and that's what you want to get. One more thing related to downloading these Excel spreadsheets from the PurpleWolf Facebook group that I want to show. And this is pretty much only if you're using a PC. If you're on a Mac, I don't believe these are applicable. But I just downloaded the helper file. You can see here the PW b-ball ref data file onto my computer. So it's right here in this folder. But before I can use it, I need to unblock it, because these Excel files, because they end in XLSM, the M means they have macro programming language in them. So a lot of browsers, when you download them, will automatically block those macros from running because of for security and virus reasons. But I can guarantee you these spreadsheets are 100% safe. So once you download them, but before you use them, you want to you need to unblock them. So what I'll show is how that works. So I'm using Windows 11, but I'm going to right click on this file that I just downloaded, and I'm going to go to Properties. And when I click the Properties, I get this, and you'll see here it tells me about this file. But the important thing is when you see down here where it says on Security, it'll give you this option to unblock. And you can see why it says it came from another computer and it's blocked just to kind of as a safeguarding device or safeguarding for reason. That's why it's blocked. So I'm going to then unblock this and click OK. And that will allow the programming to basically to work in the spreadsheet. I'll click OK. If I go back to this and look at properties, now that unblock is no longer there. So I just want to show that for folks using a PC, this is pretty common that you'll need to do that when you download an Excel spreadsheet that ends with this M, with the macro programming in it. You'll need to unblock it. So that is true for both the PurpleWolf spreadsheet, like here, this file, as well as the helper spreadsheet, the basketball reference data file that you'll need to unblock before you use them. So in these next few minutes, I'm going to demonstrate how to create a historical team season for the 1977 Portland Trail Blazers. Okay, let's get started. So once you have your PurpleWolf spreadsheet downloaded and launch it, this is what it should look like when you first run it or open it up. It'll give you this welcome message with these 4 big buttons on it. And we'll pick the green button. I guess you could pick the yellow button if you wanted to watch some of the videos. It'll take you to the YouTube page. But what we're going to do is to create this historical league, we're going to choose the green button here. And what that does is it activates the league help worksheet. You see down here, the LG help. And it gives us this little message here that also tells us that there's 3 different kinds of leagues. And it's advising us to use this LG help sheet to guide us along. So I'll click OK there, and you can see here these first 3 kind of big columns are the step-by-step instructions of how to create these different types of leagues. The historical team season, so where you pick a year and a team. The league season, where you just pick an entire year. Or the custom league, which is very flexible, which we won't cover that in this video. But what we're going to do is create this historical team season. I think we're going to do 1977 Portland Trail Blazers. And these first 2 steps here, and you can see here these 2 historical leagues have a lot of steps in common, so they're just listed like this. But here just to start with a new copy of the spreadsheet, which we have. The second one is telling us to go get the basketball reference helper file, the data file, which we already have. And step 3, which is go to the league sheet or tab in PurpleWolf. So that's what we'll do next. Go down here on the league sheet and click that. And that brings us to this empty league sheet. Ooh, I guess I need to scroll over a little. And here it says where to start. Right here. Any cell in the whole spreadsheet that has these little red triangle in the upper right corner means if you hover your mouse on it, it'll show you some hopefully helpful information. So if we look at this mode, if we hover on it, it again tells us a little bit more about these 3 different types of league modes and various things about them. Similarly with other things, with the teams and such. So what we're going to do is click in this yellow box. We get this little drop down, and here are our league choices. We'll pick HTS for historical team season, because that's what we're going to do. And then you can see it kind of gives us these instructions, which are similar to the other thing. It tells us to enter the season year in the yellow year cell, which is right here. So I click OK. It highlights the cell and tells us enter the 4-digit year of our choice. And it gives us a little tip here because we know basketball seasons start in the fall and end in the spring/summer. The PurpleWolf spreadsheet refers to seasons with a single year. So in this case, if we say 1989, that means that's the year the season ended, not started. So when the spreadsheet refers to a season 1989, it means the 1988-89 season. So for our example, if we wanted the 77 Trailblazers, on a lot of places it would list it as 76-77, but we would just enter 1977. And here is where, because we don't have that helper spreadsheet open, when I put this year in and click enter, I get this message here that tells me that the PurpleWolf Basketball Reference Excel workbook was not found. You need to open that because it contains all the data that it needs. And here it tells me what it should be named. At least should start with PW, B-ball, ref, data, and end with this. And it can't do anything else because it couldn't find this data. So that's what will happen if you don't have this other spreadsheet open while you do this. So I'm going to now close this and open up that basketball reference spreadsheet. And when you open it, it should open up like this. It'll have 4 tabs, 4 sheets down here. And this first one is just the acknowledgement to the sports reference company. Basketballreference.com is one of their sites where they provided all the historical data that is contained in this spreadsheet. And you can see down here it's in 3 groups, really. There's the BBR, which stands for Basketball Reference, the year team, and this just has all the teams from 1950 up through the present day, and the name, and really what division they were in, and all that stuff. You can just see it's all here. It also has a roster tab that has all the rosters for all the teams. This is, several thousand rows. But you can also see it has a couple things that I want to point out. It has in this last few columns, there's a position, which here these little X's mean that Basketball Reference didn't assign this guy a position, at least in the league stat file, or league stat table of data. If you click on the individual player, it'll typically, I would say always, list a position. But when you look in a given year data file, it didn't always do it. So some of them aren't filled in, but all of the newer years, I think starting with 53, all of those are filled in. And similarly, if we look up here, maybe I even have it at 52. It looks like only through 51. 50 and 51 are the only ones that are missing the position, if that really matters. But the other thing that's important is that 1950 and 51 are the only years that don't have this average minutes per game. I guess I should have column filled in. Sorry about that. This average minutes per game in 50 and 51, those stats weren't kept. So I'm assuming they weren't, because that's why there's no data here. It just shows -1. But starting with 1952 onward, that number is filled in for every player. And you can also see in this column where it shows this multi-team list of players that played for multiple teams. It'll list them in the order that they played for them that year. So that may be helpful. The last one is the schedule tab, which is just what it sounds like. It's the schedule for all the seasons from 50 through the present, ABA and NBA. And in addition to just the schedule, it has the result of the game, the score, and if there's any notes that they happen to provide, it shows that. And this historical result can be helpful if you want to, depending on what your project is. But anyway, that's just kind of for your information only, I guess you'd say, because you really don't need to do anything with this. Just once you open it, hit this minimize button so that it goes to the background, and that way the PurpleWolf spreadsheet can find and access this data. So back in the PurpleWolf league sheet, we've already got the HTS, or the historical team season, selected as our league mode. Now we'll go back to this year cell and click it again, and now we'll enter 1977, and it will list all the teams from 1977, and it tells me to pick the one that I want. So if I could pick Portland. I'll get back to this in a second. Or if I change my mind or click the wrong one by accident, I can click somebody else and it'll say, do you want to change it? Okay. Before I move on here, I want to go back to this year and pick 1972. Because what I want to show you here is when you pick something between 68 and 76, when the ABA was around, you'll get this pop-up as soon as you put in a year, and it'll say, hey, I need to know what league you're talking about. Do you want the ABA or the NBA? And you have to enter one of those abbreviations, ABA or NBA. So if I did say ABA, I think it's case insensitive, then it will list all the ABA teams from 1972. So that's something I wanted to show you. For those years where the ABA existed, you'll choose which league you want to pick your team from. But here we're going to go back to 1977, where there's only the NBA, and click our Portland Trailblazers. Now we'll be back following the instructions here of click the big purple button, which is load this basketballreference.com data. So that's what we'll do. Okay. Oh, before I acknowledge this, I want to say, in addition to when it shows these teams here, it also populates this conference and division information over here. So you can see here it has the conference, the Western Conference, and it has their two divisions, the Eastern Conference and their two divisions. In these divisions, it refers to as, in conferences, as the L and the R, which has to do with whether in the standings are just on the left or the right, and then these divisions. And so you can also see over here, for each team, it knows which division they're in by this L or R and a number, and that equates to these divisions over here. Okay, so now back to this. This is just telling me this could take a minute or two so be patient and hope it works. But I've got confidence. So it'll now access that reference spreadsheet and grab what it needs. Hopefully you'll see this message that says success, that the data has been populated in the league, the MPL, the rosters, and the schedule, and you can take a look at it, see if it's there if you want. The important part here is you can now click the black Validate League Settings button on the league sheet, which is this black button right here, to help guide you through the rest of the steps. So I'll click OK. Now, like it said, if I want to look at this roster, I could just click down here on the rosters and see it's got stuff here. Similarly, this MPL, which stands for the Master Player List, has this stuff here, and it does tell you how many players are in the league at that point, how many unique players. On the difference between this MPL and the rosters is, on the MPL, a player is listed only once, but on the rosters, a player is listed for each team that they played for, so there'll be a few more rows there. Not that it really matters to you, but I'm just explaining what these two different things are. And over here is the schedule. here's the schedule. It says for the Blazers, it only loaded the Blazers schedule because we're just choosing them, and it shows that they have 82 games here. Okay, so back to our league sheet. I'll click the league down here, and now it told me to click this validate league button, and if I click that, it'll chirp at me and say, hey, your league ID is wrong. So that's over here, and really it's obvious now. There's two of these things I need to fill in, which is what's the name of my league and what's the ID. And the name, when I click in here, just put in a name at up to 28 characters. So here I'm just going to say this is my 77 Blazers replay. And then in my ID, this is just kind of a cryptic thing that's behind the scenes, and it really is never used unless you're going to use the spreadsheet in multiplayer mode, which in this initial version doesn't even work, but it will in the next update. Or maybe when you're listening to this, it might already have that. So I'll put in a league ID, which is, again, it's just kind of a behind the scenes thing. So I'll just call this 77 PTB for Portland Trail Blazers. Now this validate league button is kind of your best friend. It'll just keep guiding you along of what you have to do next. But you can see here it does say now this data has been loaded. I forgot to mention here, when you click this 77 year, in addition to filling out this conference and division thing, it also knows like how many, what here it's called sub-leagues, or which are the same as conferences, how many there were in that year, and how many divisions per conference or per sub-league were there. So this is automatically figured out, as well as this number of teams, all 22 teams. So let me click this black button, and it will do some stuff, and hopefully you'll get this positive message here that says, great news, the standings has been successfully configured for your league. If you want to change something, you have to go back and basically redo your league. But you can see here, this is just some a picture of what the standings look like. That's what I was saying with the left and the right. So here in this spreadsheet, the West is on the left, kind of like looking at a map. So you'll have the Western on the left and the Eastern on the right. And you can see here that these two divisions had 6, and these each had 5 teams. So okay, so you click that, and then it jumps around to a couple other things, and then it tells you success, that your league looks good. The next step is to lock your league settings. And really what that means, this is your last chance. If you want to change your league, maybe pick a different team or a different year, or do something else, you can start over without losing anything. You can always start over, but you may have to erase something to get going. But here it says, when you lock your league, what does locking mean? It really means you can't change the number of teams, the names of your teams, your IDs, any existing players and names you can't change. You can't take them out of the league, and you can't switch your division structure by, I want to move this team from the Eastern Conference to the West or something like that. It doesn't allow that. But there are some things you can do. And one of those things that you can do while your season is going is, one is these team colors that you can mess with here by switching the background and the text color of these cells. That will give you the custom colors that you maybe saw in an earlier video. And you can always change a player's primary position if you wanted to on your roster and things like that. But in general, locking your league means to kind of freeze the teams and the layout of the teams in your league configuration, which is typically fine to do at this point. So do I want to lock my league settings? Yes. This is my league. Okay. This is another thing that looks good to me. Click OK. We'll configure this spreadsheet to work in this new league mode. I click OK. It'll jump around. Success. Now the score sheet's been activated. Click the game ID to load it. Now, one thing I should have, oops, I forgot to mention this, that it's saying that the historical league, which is what we're using, and has an as-played schedule provided by PurpleWolf, but the game lineups are not provided. So, the Green Fox baseball, you have the actual lineups, and whereas the hockey and the basketball spreadsheets do not have the as-played game lineups because basically the convenience of that data is not available. It's available one game at a time, but you can't get it for the whole season. And I'm not going to go and scrape that data one game at a time. So anyway, this is just kind of informative, and it's highly recommending here that we create a default starting lineup for each team in the league. And you can do that by going to the league lineup sheet. So I'm going to click OK. One thing I noticed here is there's some extra buttons here that are kind of my testing buttons that won't be on your spreadsheet, and I'll get those cleaned up before anything I post on the Facebook group won't have these extra buttons, so I apologize for that. But anyway, so that's the basics of setting it up. We'll get into a couple more things here in a second to show you some of the details. Okay, I did remove those extra buttons here so that it looks more realistic. And now let's just do a few final actions here so that we can actually load the first game to kind of complete our league setup. So I'm going to use this navigator up here just to kind of get around. So a couple of league settings that we talked about in prior videos about setting up for your league. Let's look at those first. So it has to do with the score sheet setup. One would be the game options. What options do we want to use? I'm going to say here where I'm not going to be using the minutes, so I'll leave that off. I'm okay with these other options being on with the turnover, steal thing, and block shot, missed field goal. I'm okay with that. So I'm going to confirm these. I'll just say update, but in general, so the point I'm trying to make is, especially your minutes played, it's probably the biggest thing. And again, 4, 7, and 8, get those figured out before you start your league officially. You can also maybe play a test game because you can always overwrite your stats. So it's okay to play one game in your league and then maybe change some settings, and you can always replay that game and overwrite your stats and result, and it won't hurt anything. So I'll update those. Then I want to go to my config sheet and get my stats set. Let's start with the defaults. I'm just going to leave it at that. And maybe, I'm not sure, in 1977, maybe the three-point shot wasn't there yet, so I wouldn't maybe have turn this off. And I'll leave the flagrant fouls off, so I'm not sure they even existed then or how that worked. But down here, your other things you want to make sure you got the way you want them are the number of players on the bench, the maximum. I'll leave this at 8. This minutes per regulation period, 12, that's good. 5 minutes in an overtime, that's good. I'm not going to be assigning minutes, so I'm going to ignore this. And these all have to do with the fouls, if you recall. This means the 5th foul, they're going to shoot in the bonus. I don't really know what it was in 1977, but I'm going to leave it like this for my project. This is on the 4th foul that you're in the bonus in overtime. After you get 4 fouls, the score sheet's going to color code that as somebody in foul trouble, and at 6 fouls, they're going to color code it as they've fouled out. So this is what I'm going to have my settings for. For now, to activate these, I'll click this yellow button. And again, I want to reiterate what I just said is, look at those, maybe get them set. You can always change them at any time, but I'd say maybe play 1 or 2 practice games if you're not sure. Maybe not even play full game, but you can, to make sure you get them the way you want them. Okay, so we've got our kind of game settings set up. Now let's deal with the lineups. So let's go up here to the league setup and the lineups. Actually, first I'm going to go to the schedule. To go to the schedule, I see here the first game is the Blazers versus the Nets. So those would be the lineups that I want to get set up. So if I go to the league setup, go to the lineups, and you can see here I already set up the Nets. So this is their lineup. By default, this will be their starting lineup. You can go on to Basketball Reference and look up what lineup was used for that game if you want to. That's up to you. But that's not something the spreadsheet provides. But now let's set up the Blazers lineup. If I click here on this primary, that will launch the lineup editor. Let's go with Gross, Hollins, Lucas, Twardzik, and Walton. I think that's probably their main starters. And I'm just going to put everybody else on the bench. Okay, so here it shows that bench limit of 8 that we just saw on the config sheet. So I'm just going to use this triple thing down here to move all these guys, all the remaining players to the bench. And since I only have 8, that's within this limit. That should be good. You can adjust this order if you want using these up and down buttons, and same with the bench. Now I'm going to save this. You can see now when it saves it, it puts these 3 asterisks in front of it and bolds it so you know what teams you've got lineups set for and which ones you don't. So given that, now I can do one more thing, which is go over to my league setup sheet. And I want to just show this team color feature. So I'm just going to worry about my Blazers right now. So here's the team color cell. So I just need to set the background and the text color for these teams. And you could just do some teams or all teams or whatever you want to do. So I click in here and I right click, and then I'll get these 2 things. So this is the fill and this is the text font color. So I'm going to go with, let's go with black with red. It's a little dark, but I think it's pretty readable. So I'll go with that. And then to kind of activate these, I need to go to my score sheet. So go to main and click this reload league button. And it'll reload several more things, because just behind the scenes league stuff that it typically loads as soon as you launch the spreadsheet. But if you're making any changes to something like that, you need to click that button. So I'll do that, and now I can load my game. Here's my game ID section where it says click to load the game. So I'll click this. It bumps me back to the schedule sheet and tells me to click the game ID that I want. And here it looks like it's selected, but it's kind of this. It's not officially selected because it doesn't have the green box. So I can click that and it will still work. So I click it. It loads my lineups into my score sheet. I'm pretty much ready to go. If I click this event logger, it would show my lineups and stuff. And now I'm ready to play my game. And that wraps up this section of how to create a historical team season. You can see it's, once you get that helper spreadsheet, it only takes a few clicks to load all that historical data, load the schedule, the rosters. It's pretty painless to get started with a historical league season. A couple other miscellaneous things is the injury chart and the electronic or e-dice. PurpleWolf has a league injury chart that's totally optional whether you want to use it or not. This shows a little screenshot of what the injury chart looks like, and here kind of shows how you could add somebody to it from the event logger form. I will likely make a special video just about the injury chart, not that it's super advanced, but I don't want to get too much into this because it is an optional feature. Similar with the dice feature, if you want to set up PurpleWolf to roll dice for you, you can set up, up to 16 dice, 4 rows of them, and each dice can have 2 to 100 sides and all these different colors. So that's an option. I don't show it here, but there is also a way to set up what I call custom dice, which don't have all numbers on the sides, but it can have letters or words or some pictures or blanks. So if you want to set up a special dice like that, that's also available. But again, 100% optional feature. Now let's talk about some things that aren't in the or weren't in the initial release, but I'm hoping to add them in a future release. Number one here, the score sheet hover stats. That's something that's already in baseball and hockey and Green Fox and Blue Links, and I totally anticipate adding it to this PurpleWolf basketball. Also, custom leagues, the ability to have postseason games. Right now, this is only a baseball feature, but I really expect to add it to both basketball and hockey. It'll start with the custom leagues. I'm not sure. Maybe I can add it to the historical league too, where you can. It would be your own postseason, where you in your schedule you could designate a game as a postseason game, and what that means is when you want to compute your stats or your standings, that you could only see postseason game stats or only use postseason game stats for either your league leaders or something like that. So that's I expect that to be coming soon. Number 3 here is multi-user mode. That is something where again, it's available in Blue Links and Green Fox. And we'll talk more about that in a second. And number 4 is something I've thought about for the score sheet, which is the ability to add your game results, but really just as a summary, meaning you're just adding the game totals and you're not recording each individual event in the score sheet. But there'd be a way just to have a game on the score sheet and just say this player had, played 25 minutes, took 8 field goal attempts and made 4 and shot 5 free throws and made 2, and just put those details in, and maybe also for the game score of what the score was at the end of the first quarter, second quarter, etc. So you could enter your totals like that, and that way you can still track your season stats, but not worry about recording each event as you play it in your game. And as I kind of noted here at the bottom with this asterisk, I feel like these first 3, because they already exist in other spreadsheets, are very likely to be included in the next update, and probably for sure in the next 2, because I'm not sure anybody will be ready for postseason maybe this soon, but I totally expect all those to happen soon. Number 4 is maybe I want to see what the users think. So here's a little picture of the postseason feature that's already in the baseball. You can kind of see it affects the season stats, the league leaders, and the standings. And you could see when it shows the standings or whatever, it just kind of shows this special cell that indicates that, hey, what you're looking at is postseason as opposed to regular season. And it kind of automatically figures that out once you add a postseason or finish a postseason game in your schedule. The multi-user feature, again, that's available, as I said, in Blue Links and Green Fox already. And this can be used in a couple different ways, as I list here, as maybe a competitive league or a co-op project. And there's a couple different modes it could be used. So in the way it gets implemented is this is a picture of a schedule sheet. You can see here there's this import game results and stats. And right now, if you click on it, I think it just says under construction or something like that. But in the future, that will work. And these 2 different modes, one would be you have a spreadsheet, I'll say a spreadsheet person that receives completed score sheets from different project participants, and then when that person receives them, they would manually enter the results. And I think this is a case where then it would likely rely on this other future enhancement of just being able to enter the game totals for a player as opposed to the events. But they could enter each event too if they wanted to, if you wanted to record that. But another way for doing maybe a co-op project or a league thing would be you actually have everybody involved in it get a copy of the spreadsheet. So somebody makes a master copy, distributes that copy to other people. They play their games in there and then send a copy or upload a copy to someone, kind of the coordinator, who will then click this button and it'll detect what games are completed in the other spreadsheets and bring in those results and stats from it. And again, this already works in hockey, in Blue Lynx and Green Fox, so that way of using it has already been figured out. I think just this other way of entering these game results here is what's more the novel new possible feature. Okay, so that's enough for future features. Right now, as far as upgrades go, that's always a question. And I think that's one of the best features of all these spreadsheets is how easy the upgrades work. As I kind of wrote in the title here, you kind of click and follow the yellow or purple brick road, whatever color you like, I guess. But in general, here is how it works. When I release a new version of the PurpleWolf spreadsheet that maybe has some bug fixes or maybe it has some new features, you would download the new one from the Facebook group, and you'll need to unblock it if you're on a PC, and then open up the new file, and you'll get this welcome screen that we saw earlier in the video. And you would then click this upgrade button here, and that would give you the directions of how to upgrade your current spreadsheet. But in general, what it does is copies your old stuff into the new spreadsheet. As it shows in this little orange box here at the bottom, is the upgrade process doesn't make any changes to your original spreadsheet, but it simply copies the data from that one into the newer one, which makes the upgrade process very safe. You're not going to lose your data because of the upgrade process. It's really just going to copy it. It's not trying to change it or do anything to it. So you're pretty much just kind of going from the old spreadsheet into the new one, and it moves all your old data into the new spreadsheet. And like any upgrade, I guess it's always a little scarier the first time you do it, but after you do it once, it's quite painless and very, very fast. Okay, so let's kind of wrapping this video up. Let's talk about what PurpleWolf costs. It doesn't cost anything directly. It's free. It's publicly available. You do have to have a Facebook account or know somebody that does, so you can join the group and download the spreadsheet. It requires a full version of Excel. It does not work on Google Sheets or OpenOffice or any other spreadsheet program because of the programming that's used to make it work. That only works on Microsoft Excel. And I would recommend, or I feel like all these spreadsheets that I've created, the bigger the screen you have, the better the experience. The less scrolling you have to do, the better. That's pretty much true for anything you do on the computer. As far as PurpleWolf support goes, I just want to emphasize this: don't give up. If you're not sure how to do it, feel free to ask. You can ask, in the group, on the Facebook group, or you can maybe go back and watch one or more videos. You can send an email to the PurpleWolf spreadsheet. That's me. A lot of times it's convenient if you attach your spreadsheet and send it to me so I can take a look at it. And also something for the most part, I've enjoyed in supporting both the Blue Links and Green Fox spreadsheets is I've had several uh, online meetings that I've arranged with users, and where they've described or demonstrate the problem that they're having or explained it, and we were able to talk through and work it out, and many times figured out on the spot of what's going on and how to avoid the error, or how to fix the problem. And also I always like to hear feedback, whether what's good or bad, or ideas for the future, or how to make something better. I'm always open. I don't. All feedback is to me is, I'll say, worth hearing, whether whether I like it or not. But if it's what people think, that's what they think. So that's what I like to know. And again, just don't be afraid to ask for help. That wraps up this fourth and final video in the PurpleWolf overview video series. I hope you found it worth your while and hopefully thought of different ways, or realized ways that you could use PurpleWolf to make your basketball gaming project more fun, at least more efficient, by giving it the task of keeping track of your stats so you don't have to do that, which should give you more time to play your games. Maybe it'll even inspire you to consider projects that before were too ambitious because of the number of games or the amount of stats that you would have had to keep track of. But now with this spreadsheet, those are a little more in reach. So thanks again for watching, and I'm already looking forward to adding these new features to the upcoming versions of PurpleWolf to make it even better than it is right now. Thanks again.